Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lord Meher book reading. It's another Thursday out here in Bombay, India, and I welcome all of you from different parts of the world who are joining in live and those who would be hearing the recording. Um, so, we were reading about Baba in Nasik and Kans. Eva, could you go to page number 837? I'll just start from a little bit of the ending and come back on this. Thanks. Okay. All right. So actually, my my device is acting up. So maybe Marvin, you could start reading, or Eugene, one of y'all could start reading. My screen is flickering at the moment, so I won't be able to read. Let me just start this again.
I could start if you need.
Okay. Okay, it's stopped again. So maybe I can start. Um, what do you think? Where should we start reading from, Marvin?
Let's see. This is the bottom of the previous page here. Is that where we are? Well, I think.
Yes, that's right.
All right, so I'll just start with the next to last paragraph there.
Okay. All right.
Um, are we ready to go? Are we recording it?
Yeah, the recording's on. Actually, my screen also stopped flickering, but you could start.
All right, we stopped at the end of this message here. We're going to pick it up towards the end and finish it. Bob is speaking. I work universally. If you think of me, if you love me, you are sharing my work. It is the link that matters. The engine pulls and the carriages go with it because they are linked with the engine. I do my work whether there is freedom or not, but it goes easier if there are no hindrances. Therefore, be honest in your answers. At Abhinagar, the food will be the same as it is here, and there will also be servants. There will be more scorpions, but fewer snakes. The most difficult part will be the bathing, restrictions, and conditions. Dr. Neelu will look after your health. There must be harmony. If there is no harmony, then better that you all pack up, that all of you pack off. Discomforts and harmony must go together. I like Garrett for one thing. He was always honest and very direct in his answers. There is nothing like struggling. It results in perfection. Fall down and use and rise up again. Keep on struggling. Now think before you reply. Do not be swept away by emotions. The majority voted for Mehrabad, and Baba continued. So it is to be Ahmednagar until we see if it is more practical than Portofino. If Garrett sends money, we go to Portofino, charter a boat, all to ourselves. Now, those who really want to go and come back, do it now. Leave in June and return in October. Who wants to go now? No one raised their hand. Mehrabad is ideal for me. I should have you quite near me, but I think the discomforts will be too much for you to bear. If we had all strong people here, we could manage it. All are strong in love, very strong. Not one of you wants to leave. Later that day, Baba commented, Later that day, Baba commented about habits. Anything that forms itself into a habit loses its freshness, sincerity, and enthusiasm, even repentance. If you every day become weak and repent for having been weak, in the end you find your only weakness has been repenting. Only love remains ever fresh. The habit of questioning and doubting, in the end, reacts on the questioner himself. Vivekananda used to always ask questions. Why? Why this? Why that? Ramakrishna loved him very much, so he used to answer. But one day he got fed up and did not reply. Vivekananda asked again and again, but got no answer. Then one night at midnight, Ramakrishna said, "Bring me food." And he named certain kinds of dishes. Vivekananda could not find the food in the house at that hour. Ramakrishna asked him why. Why is it not available? And Vivekananda said, because it's 12 o'clock at night. It's not the time for eating. At that moment, Vivekananda got his answer. From that day, he never asked another question. Now I, who have formed the habit of answering, will now ask questions, and you all answer honestly. Is there real harmony here? The previous year, King Edward VIII had abdicated the British throne to marry Wallace Simpson. His younger brother, George, you want to read that footnote?
Sure. Footnote, Edward VIII, 1894 to 1972, was extremely popular until his announced intention of marrying Wallace Simpson precipitated a government crisis. Edward insisted he had the right to marry the woman of his choice, but he was forced to abdicate as Simpson was a divorcee. He and Simpson married and remained together until his death. In 1936, Sir Akbar Hyderabad had been appointed as one of Edward's privy councillors. End of footnote.
So he abdicated the throne to his younger brother, George VI, who was being crowned king in Westminster Abbey on Wednesday, May 12, 1937. And the Westerners listened to the coronation ceremony on BBC Radio. Baba also listened for some time and remarked, "It's all illusion, bound by time and space." However, he appreciated the king giving up his crown for the sake of love. They asked if Edward was listening to the broadcast of the coronation, and Baba said yes, but he does not feel regret about it. During the Archbishop of Canterbury's address, Baba commented, "They, those in the church, all speak of Christ our Lord, but do not follow him." After the ceremony, he explained to the group, "Edward is free now to follow love and to draw toward me. To follow divine love, impersonal or personal, is to come to me." Remarking on the new King George and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, Baba stated, "At least it is some solace to the people that they both have good hearts." Baba had lunch that day at the guest house where the Jessawallas were staying and had a heart-to-heart talk with each of the family. Baba left Nasik early in the morning of 13 May 1937 with Adi Sr. and arrived at Meherabad at 7 o'clock. The Jessawallas came to Meherabad at 10 a.m. and Baba spoke with Gai Mai and her sister Shirin Damania about the engagement of their children. 2 days later, he met with all the Jessawallas and Satas at Meherabad, and the engagements were fixed. Baba had further conversations with the Jessawallas in Nasik on the 27th and 28th, settling their differences and disagreements. At their bungalow on 28 May, Baba told each individually not to worry about anything. He would see to everything. To Gai Mai, he remarked, "I never make plans, never change plans. It is all one endless plan of making people know that there is no plan. Sometime later, most likely June 27, the engagement ceremony was held at Akbar Press in Ahmednagar. Baba attended and betrothed Erich to his first cousin, Khorshid Jahangir Damania. And at the same time, he engaged Erich's sister, Meru, to Khorshid's brother, Savak. A few of the Westerners were present at the small ceremony. Baba garlanded the couples and applied come to their foreheads, and they exchanged rings before him. At that time, Erich had no intention of marrying, but it was an arranged marriage according to the wishes of both families. To free Erich from bondage, Baba made him enter this bond, but as Baba guided him and events unfolded, the marriage never did bind him. Erich and his family left Ahmednagar for Nasik and then Nagpur, where Erich continued his education. Meetings discussing the future of the ashram continued throughout the next week, whenever Baba was with the Westerners in Nasik. One morning, Jean Adriel went to Baba and asked that Narina be relieved of her duties as manager. Baba called Narina and made Jean repeat all her complaints before her. He explained that he wanted Narina to be the manager, but Jean kept insisting Ruano would be better. Narina asked Baba to ask everyone's opinion after lunch. A meeting was called in Elizabeth and Narina's room. All were asked to give their honest opinion. Different opinions and other complaints were voiced, except by Will, Mary, and Elizabeth, who seemed always satisfied. Thus, everyone's feelings were expressed and the air was cleared. And in the end, Baba gave in to Jean's request and rearranged the household affairs. Ruano became the manager and Norina handled the budget. But Jean had forgotten that Baba had once emphasized to them, no new suggestions. These changes seemed to foretell the imminent breaking up and closing of the entire ashram. On a previous occasion, Baba had explained to them, do not get disheartened or alarmed when adversity, calamity, or misfortunes pour upon you. Thank God, for thereby he has given you the opportunity of acquiring forbearance and fortitude. One who has acquired the power of bearing with adversity can easily enter upon the spiritual path. Do not get angry, but be pleased with him who backbites you, for he thereby renders service to you by diminishing the load of your sanskaras. Also, pity him, for thereby he makes his load of sanskaras more burdensome. Do not criticize. The habit of criticizing our fellow beings is a bad one. At the back of it often lies self-righteousness, conceit, and a false sense of superiority. Sometimes it indicates envy or a desire for retaliation. At the end of one of their meetings, all were asked to cast their vote. Afterward, Baba humorously remarked, the reactions are satisfactory, but Elizabeth is either dead or has attained perfection, since she does not seem to have reacted in any way. One day, when all were seated around Baba, he turned to Malcolm and directed him to give each a sheet of paper and a pen. Baba then instructed, write down anything that comes to your mind. Some wrote humorous things and some serious thoughts. A few samples are as follows. I spend my entire time wondering what it is all about. I feel like a neatly tied up package to be sent off at a moment's notice. Unsigned. Another one. One most important thing is that I am having a very happy day. Baba is here and my world is complete. Nani. Love, so they say, makes the world go round. Loving Baba makes it spin all the faster. Rano. Again, the advantages and disadvantages of staying in India were discussed, and the final meeting of future plans was held on Tuesday, 18 May 1937. Baba emphasized that the stay at Meherbad was not practical for the Westerners. Italy, particularly Portofino, was thought the most ideal for both the Easterners and Westerners. Later that evening, Baba called all together outside on the lawn. Regarding the discussions about the new plan to set up an ashram in Italy, someone asked whether it should be kept private or whether or not they could write about it to others. Thereupon, Baba narrated the following story, implying that the secret was already out. There is a saying that women can never keep secrets. A man in ancient Persia loved his wife very much and confided everything to her. His friend advised him not to tell her everything, to which he replied, "My wife is most trustworthy." The friend said, "All right, you do as I tell you and see if she stands the test." The man went home and pretended being very afraid of something. His wife immediately asked what it was. He said, "I cannot tell you. It is a matter of life and death." The more he refused, the more curious she became. Finally, he said, "I'll tell you, but keep it a secret. If the king knows, he will have me beheaded." She assured him, "I love you more than my own life. How could I tell this to anyone and have you beheaded?" "All right," he said. "Today, when I passed by the king's palace, I saw a crow coming out of the king's shoulder. Don't tell this to anyone." She assured him she would not. The man went to work the next day, and when he returned in the evening, some women were gossiping. As soon as they saw him, they said, "Here comes the one who saw 40 crows coming out of the king's shoulder." The man went home and told his wife.
All
I
right.
said, "Oh,
There's some disturbance. I think your voice is coming and going. So maybe we'll start with somebody else. Where
okay."
where do we start from?
Right at the top of page 1842. Unless you need to
All
go
right.
back to the
Thank you.
previous. Okay.
No, this is good. This is good. Thanks. The man went home and told his wife, "I said only one, but now it's 40. So our poor Portofino secret is probably already out to the world." Baba concluded, meaning some had written about it. After lunch on 19th May in Nasik, Baba offered mangoes to some of the group. Some declined, saying their stomachs were too upset to eat mango. Baba did not like this and spelled out, "What does not come spontaneously never comes." How many of you refused? How many of you hesitated when I offered you the mangoes? In truth, there are many ways of testing faith and love. Love always seeks the will, happiness, pleasure, and to obey the commands of the beloved. Always. Love never thinks of itself. That is love, and that is God. God gives eternally. Love also gives, the lover never expects. I had first intended to give you the rotten mangoes, but I knew that not one of you would have willingly taken them. And yet, you all talk of dying for God? Be honest. When you say you love me, do love me. Don't you remember the story I told you of Ramdas and Kalyan? How Kalyan sucked the mango tied to Ramdas, knee thinking it to be poison. This is love. to be ready to die for the love of the beloved, for the happiness of the beloved. Changing the subject, Baba explained about Jesus and the apostles, Peter and Judas. Now, who is Christ, the individual soul? Who is Jesus, the avatar of Nazareth? What is Christ, the Son of God's deed? Eva, could you read the footnote? Thank you.
Yes. For an explanation of the states of God, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, refer to the Nothing and the Everything, pages 139 through 143. End of footnote.
Judas helped Jesus Christ in the universal work. If Christ had not undergone the crucifixion, he could not have taken the burden of the universe upon himself. Jesus brought about his own crucifixion. Peter loved Jesus the most. Jesus loved him most, although the love of Jesus for all was the same. Can you explain this? Loving all the same and yet more than others? It is like the different parts of the body. They all belong to you, but you love some parts more than others. The eyes are more dear than your fingers. Is this clear? Jesus loved Peter most in this respect. Peter was his eyes. When Jesus said to Peter, "You will betray me," Peter knew he would betray his master, the one whom he loved most, and yet he bore it bravely. Next page, please. Thank you. It was the most difficult thing to know that he would betray and yet not become weak. Jesus made Peter know that he would betray him for his work. Judas was also made to betray. Peter betrayed willingly. It is most difficult when you love the one you betray. For example, suppose you, pointing to one, love me most, you and Peter. You, pointing to another, are Judas. I want you both to kill me. Now you, Peter, are made to kill me. You would not willingly do so. You are asked by me to kill me. And you love me more than your life. But you will lovingly kill me for my work. Even Arjuna could not be like Peter. Krishna had to show him his universal body before he would kill his brothers and relatives in battle. You, Judas, pointing to that one, love me very much. I turn the key and you go against me for my work. You do not go against me of your own accord. I make you go against me in order to tell people all about me. You do it willingly, knowing that people hearing you would beat me and crucify me. All this means love, faith, and sacrifice. If you do what I ask willingly, you really love me. If you're made to do it, you love me a little less. But if you do not do it, it all turns out like today's mango business. When you all hesitated to accept when I offered the mangoes. Just before I start this, since we're talking about mangoes, I had just gone to Mehrabad now, and we'd gone to Mehrazad, and we all got mangoes from a tree that Baba had eaten the mango, and the seed was planted from that tree. And the joy of getting that mango was just something else. And sharing it was even more. And when I shared that mango with a Baba lover who had come from Bombay, she just was in, I mean, she was so happy. I mean, like a child. I've never seen anyone so happy. So, Baba and his mangoes. But they were really nice.
And the taste was divine. I haven't
Yes,
had mango like
yes, Mahapu. I kept it for
that.
days until it sweetened.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just really nice. I hope all of you all get to eat that mango someday. Baba concluded, God's grace makes you love me. My grace makes you one with me. The next day, Baba left Nasik at 4 p.m. for Mehrabad. 6 days later, on Wednesday evening, 26th May, he arrived back in Nasik unexpectedly. Delia, Jean, Will, and Maya were feeling ill, and Baba went to Sarza to see them. Delia's temperature, which had been quite high all day, suddenly fell to normal. Baba, snapping his fingers, dictated, Quick march! Which they took to mean they would soon be leaving Nasik for somewhere else. Baba stayed in Nasik for a few days, and on the morning of 20th May, before breakfast, he delivered this discourse on love, which Nadine wrote down. What is love? To give and never to ask. What leads to this love? Grace. What leads to this grace? Grace is not cheaply bought. It is gained by being always ready to serve and reluctant to be served. So I will pass this on to Eugene. Eugene, please read next. Thank you.
There are many points which lead to this grace. Wishing well for others at the cost of oneself, never backbiting, tolerance supreme, trying not to worry, which is almost impossible, but try anyway, thinking more of the good points in others and less of their bad points. When Christ said, Love your neighbor, he did not mean fall in love with your neighbor. If you do one of the above perfectly, the rest must follow. Then grace descends. Have love. And when you have love, union with the beloved is certain. When you love, you give. When you fall in love, you want. Love me in any way you like, but love me. It is all the same. Love me. I am pure, the source of purity. So I consume all weaknesses in my fire of love. Give your sins, weaknesses, virtues all to me, but give. I would not mind even one falling in love with me. I can purify. But when you fall in love with anybody else, you cannot call it love. Love is pure as God. It gives and never asks. That needs grace. Yogis in the Himalayas, with their long eyelashes and beards, meditating for years, sitting in samadhi, they have not this love. It is so precious. The mother dies for her child, a supreme sacrifice. Yet it is not love. Heroes die for their country, but that is not love. You can only know love when you have love. You cannot understand it theoretically. You have to experience it. Majnun loved Layla. This was pure love, not physical, not intellectual, but spiritual love. He saw Layla in everything and everywhere. He never thought of eating, drinking, sleeping without thinking of her. All the time he wanted her happiness. He would have gladly seen her married to another if he knew that would make her happy. At last, it led him to me. When you love, there is no thought of self, but of the beloved every second continually. You would not be able to have this love even if you tried. It requires grace, but trying leads to grace. What is God? Love, infinite love. Later that day, Baba called the group to meditate for 15 minutes. He then sent them off to let them prepare their costumes for the costume party that evening before dinner. Narina and Elizabeth came dressed as Siamese twins, both wrapped in one sari. They won first prize. Second prize went to Margaret, who was dressed as a witch. Delia won third as a Spanish flamenco dancer. After ice cream and cake, Baba called them into the living room and discussed his upcoming plans for another journey to Europe. A decision was taken to proceed to Cannes in the south of France, and Baba instructed Kitty, Margaret, Delia, Will, Mary, and Tom to return to England in June. In addition, Kitty was told to go on ahead to Cannes and rent 3 houses, one for Baba and the women Mondali, the second for the men Mondali, and a third for the Westerners. Thus, the stage was set for another journey to Europe, and the days of the Nasik ashram drew to a close. The next morning at 4 o'clock, Baba left Nasik for Meherabad in the Opal. With Adi Sr. So this is back in 1937. Opal is still in business. My sister drives an Opal. With Adi Sr., Nilu, and Bhagirath. Chanji was sent to Bombay to book the Westerners' passage and hotel rooms. Baba stopped at Kushru quarters where he met Gulmai, Paroja, Indu Subnis, Sarosh, and his brother Dinshaw's families. He then went to a film at Sarosh Cinema, To Marry with Love, before returning to Meherabad. Baba regularly came to the Mad Ashram at Lower Meherabad, where he bathed, shaved, and fed the approximately 23 inmates. The water and other arrangements here proved much more convenient than they had been in Rahuri. And shopping for and delivering supplies also proved easier. Once, while bathing or feeding Muhammad Must, Baba asked rhetorically, "Who is the mother of Muhammad?" He gestured. "Baba is the mother of Muhammad." A teacher from Sholapur named Bhagavat had heard of Baba from Gadakar, and on 31 May 1937, he brought his son to meet Baba. The son did not speak, and the father narrated some incidents about him, which led him to believe the child was spiritually advanced. Baba liked the boy, and the boy liked Baba also. But the father did not agree for him to remain at Meherabad. At Meherabad, the MEHER free dispensary began operating again under Dr. Nilu's supervision from the 1st of June 1937. It was located in a separate structure of tata and bamboo walls, erected at the front of Lower Meherabad, next to the men Mandali's quarters at the old Dharamshala building. Ghani stopped his fast that day and began eating normally. Rao Saheb went into the Ahmednagar market almost every day for Meherabad's supplies, and Baidul and Pleader continued to oversee the Mad ashram. Another structure of temporary rooms was erected to the west of the Dharamshala's building, and a few others stayed. The Dharamshala building where Nilu and a few others stayed. Most of the Mandali continued to sleep on the floor of the long hall of their quarters, the possessions of each one in a small trunk at the head of each one's bedding roll. On 3 June, the Westerners visited Meherabad and spent the night. They returned to Nasik the next day, late at night, except Sam Cohen, who was allowed to stay behind and help the Mandali in the Mad Ashram for about 10 days. Manikar from Dhulia had also come. On Sunday, 6 June, Baba's childhood friend, Bailey, visited Meherabad. For his own reasons, Baba kept Bailey aloof externally. But all knew that Baba loved him dearly. Baba was bathing Muhammad, assisted by Sam and Swamiji, when Bailey arrived. Muhammad was standing nude, refusing to wear his kafni. Baba commented, "Among the entire group of inmates here, only 4 are on the path, and Muhammad is one of them." Oh, he was so cute when he was young, right, Muhammad? Later that day, Baba was driven to Nasik with Chanji and Sarosh. Rustam followed in his car with 2 of his sons. On 8 June, Baba explained to the Western group, "All that smells good is not good. When you direct the mind, then there is no worry. But this is very difficult. After all, what does it matter? When the mind stops consciously, there is unfathomable bliss. One cannot describe that bliss. That state is not realization, but one step before it."
And footnote, Baba was referring to the state of nirvana. In Sufism, This divine state of annihilation or vacuum is called phana phila. End of footnote.
The human mind works fast. An uncontrolled mind plays havoc with one's soul. But, teasing Delia, your uncontrolled mind plays havoc with my hair.
And footnote, as previously noted, Delia and Margaret would, at times, comb Baba's hair and massage his scalp as he dictated from the alphabet board to the group. End of footnote.
My mind is like the ocean, bad and good, and all the filth and good of the universe is absorbed in it. You think good thoughts, I absorb it. You think bad thoughts, I absorb it. Like water in a small pool, if the filth seeps into it, it pollutes the water. But if these good and bad thoughts become absorbed in the ocean, they are just washed away because the ocean is so tremendous. Your limited mind becomes stagnant with a few bad thoughts. But even universal bad thoughts cannot affect my ocean-like mind. Baba had decided to start sending certain persons back to Europe during the first week of June 1937. Will and Mary Beckett were sent to Bombay first.
Thank you, Eugene. Eva, could you read next? Thank you.
Sure. At 4 p.m. on 8 or 9 June, Adi Sr. drove Baba, Kitty, Delia, and Margaret there in his Chevrolet. Norina and Elizabeth followed in the Ford. All stayed at Kaka's residence. Baba took them to a movie one night to help them stop thinking of their upcoming separation. On 10 June, Ezra Mir, a director who had met Baba in Hollywood in 1932, came to see him. Mir had just returned from Europe, where Gabriel Pascal had encouraged him to contact Baba. And footnote. In 1935, Gabriel Pascal had enlisted Ezra Mir to work on the continuity of Baba's film script. End of footnote. Baba had told him to come to Nasik, where he would speak with him at length. Baba left Bombay on the 11th for Nasik and then Meherabad, and the first Western group of 5 Britishers sailed for London on the 12th aboard the Rawalpindi, the same ship that had brought them to India 6 months before. And footnote. Since the English group's departure at the beginning of June, Baba only went to Nasik 3 other times before leaving for Cannes. End of footnote. About 50 Bombay lovers gathered to see them off, as well as press photographers and reporters. The next day, the group sent this cable to Baba. We depart under orders, but leave our hearts with you, beloved. Although Baba had detailed plans for visiting Cannes, the lovers could never be certain whether or not this plan was a ruse, and dreaded receiving a telegram from India saying, plans changed, or, less dreadful, postponed. This thought was uppermost in their minds as they departed. Toward the end of June, Baba instructed Sam Cohen to stay in the Tiger Valley cave at Panchanji, but he was afraid to be there alone by himself. And so Baba directed him to go to Europe via Colombo. Sam left on 23 June. Chanji met him in Bombay, where he boarded a train for Madras. On Saturday, 26 June 1937, a trust meeting was held at Meherbad from 9 to 11:30 a.m. Narina and Elizabeth drove there from Nasik with Ramju and Kaka and returned the same night after going to a film with Baba. Baba intended taking the Eastern women with him to France. On 5 July, he informed Adi Sr., Adi Jr., Pendu, Padri, and Vishnu about the forthcoming trip and warned them to keep it secret. Baba directed Nadine to go to Venice, Italy, for some work, and she sailed from Bombay on 8 July on the Conti Russo. Baba went to Bombay to see her off. With Nadine's departure, there were only 8 Westerners remaining in Nasik: Jean and Malcolm, Narina, Elizabeth, Ruano, Tom, Rano, and Nani. Thereafter, all the necessary preparations for traveling to Cannes began. While sailing aboard the Ral Pindi Kitty, on behalf of the English group, wrote a farewell letter for publication in MEHER Gazette, summarizing their Nasik stay. This sudden change of plan, the departure of the Westerners, will astound the outside world, but not Meher Baba's close disciples, who know his way of working. Just as soon as the work has been done in one particular spot, bang goes the hammer and the building is dissolved. The work and planning of previous months all go to the wind, and a fresh plan is started in fresh surroundings. Baba does not say this in so many words, but we, in the midst of it, feel it is so. It is an illusion anyway, so why become attached to it? What does it all matter? What matters is the change it has worked on those participating in it while it lasted. And what has that change been in us who were called from the West to share in the life of the East? It is not too near to the experience to speak of it. We all feel we have learned a great deal of tolerance and understanding of one another, of the real inner meaning of love and service, and the need of adapting oneself to the new and restricted surroundings. Most of all, what has it revealed to us of the Master, Meher Baba himself? Can one truthfully say one understands his ways more? No, I personally feel that these 6 months of close contact leaves one with greater amazement, awe, and wonder at his unfathomable ways. They are beyond the finite human understanding. But one's love and trust in him have grown far deeper. And with this deeper faith has come a more complete surrenderance. His orders we may still obey because we are humanly weak, but this does not mean our love is any the less. In fact, it is through our very weaknesses that Baba each time draws us closer to him. Is forgiveness, tinged though it may be with sternness or gentleness, but always with justice and kindness, leaves an unforgettable impression in the heart and mind. And it is just this opportunity of living in close contact with the Master, like Meher Baba, as we have been privileged to do during these past months, that has taught us so much. It was Baba's love that brought us to India, and it is his love again that now sends us back to the West to make preparation for the next phase of his activity.
Mahu, could you read next?
Sure. So this is page 1849 in the year 1937. It was Baba's love that brought us to India, and it is his love again that now sends us back to the West to make preparation for the next phase of his activity there. So it is goodbye to India for the present. We have loved meeting so many of Baba's devotees and close disciples, and feel a very close tie with all who love Baba, and we hope one day to renew that friendship if Baba calls us again to India. We were greatly touched to welcome so many at the docks who came to see us off and who gave us a hearty farewell. The 12th anniversary of Baba's silence was observed privately in Mehrabad by the Mandali and certain close ones on Sunday, 10 July 1937. For the occasion, only Norina, Elizabeth, and Nani were called from Nasik. Baba permitted a large expenditure of 50 rupee for the Mandali's food that day. After a meeting of the trust's members in the Rahuri cabin and a brief discussion with the Westerners, the Silence Day program began. Ghani delivered the following speech. Most beloved Master Shri Baba, let me at the outset thank you on behalf of the Mandali for granting our request to celebrate the 12th anniversary of your silence, which comes today. Let me also thank the representatives of the Western Mandali for participating in the function at the cost of such great comfort and convenience. Today, the 10th of July, we find the Mandali in a very happy but reflective mood, if I may so. The 12th year of your silence has been very helpful and full of promise. And more color was added to it by the presence in India of our brothers and sisters in faith from the Western Hemisphere. As things stand today, though the promised land longed for millennium is not in sight, all the same, it has left us undismayed. Your divine wisdom, it seems, has planned it otherwise. We most humbly and willingly abide by your omniscient decision, as you know all too well what is best for every one of us. The occasion was induced to an extent an introspective attitude of mind in me. I should therefore be excused for having the temerity to philosophize on the significance of your silence in your presence and the lessons we unwittingly learned and unlearned as time went on. My interpretation of your silence as compared and contrasted with similar ordeals by others on the divine path is as follows. Next page, 1850. Ordeals of this nature by others, instances of which are many in the mythological lore of different religions, are usually self-imposed and disciplinary. Your silence is divinely and spiritually dictated. With others, it is usually prior and preparatory to perfection. With you, it is undertaken after realization. With others, an ordeal like this is undertaken for self-purification and self-glorification. With you, for the spiritual purification of your disciples and the salvation of mankind. With others, it is penance. With you, it is crucifixion. With others, it is invariably a vow. With you, it is a divine duty. In others, it gains a strength for themselves. With you, it is meant to impart a spiritual authority to others. And I suppose the Mandali have been explained what that means. With others, it is mental struggle for progress. With you, it is a labor of love, purely spiritual and divine. In the case of others, a round period of time like 12 years, 24 years, or 36 has only astrological or at best psychic importance. The spiritual importance of your ordeal evidently belies this position. You first gave out your silence as only for 1 year, and since the period of 12 years is ruled out today, you are likely to end it as abruptly and unexpectedly as begun. With you, our beloved master, the Mandali must have observed everything is unlimited and infinite. The question of developing libido by such means I leave for a much more leisurely and serious occasion to discuss. I have now indulged in a bit of loud thinking in the presence of all. My aforesaid dedications and perhaps entertaining, but not infallible. I, therefore, invite from all the Mandali present here candid corroboration and healthy criticism. Will it be too much to request you, Shri Meher Baba, in commemoration of this 12th anniversary of your silence, to give us, your loving disciples and servants, some unique spiritual and divine discourse that will feed our minds for some days or years to come? Subscribing myself to the beautiful and hopeful words of a Sufi saint when he said, "Blessed is he whose lips are dumb, through whom shall be given the words of life. I remain forever at your feet." Baba consented to Ghani's request and stated, I have not taken a vow of silence, nor am I observing silence on the basis of tapas or penance. Had it been so, I would have ended the silence today, which is the beginning of the 13th year. However, it does not necessarily mean that I am not going to speak very soon. I might speak during the 13th year as I lack the number 13. And there are favorable signs too. Ahmednagar, which is proverbially dry and had no rain this year, has begun to have a steady and continuous downpour since 12 o'clock last night, the expiry of 12 years of my silence. But it is only drizzling, hence it is also a sign of danger. That is why I have today put on a new red coat. One of you may die, maybe X, maybe Y, but the one who dies will realize God before giving up the gross body. Also take a note of the speech delivered by Ghani today, which is the best regarding my silence and its explanation. I would only want a line from this speech to be dropped, and that is about his request for a discourse, quote unquote discourse. Baba then motioned for Ghani and Ghani to embrace each other. He remarked, quote, I embraced my own self in you through Ghani. I embraced my own self in Chanji through you. My ways are as infinite as my experience. Baba then walked up Mirabad Hill to see the woman Mandali. During the latter part of July 1937, prior to departing for France, Meher Baba was chiefly occupied in serving the mosques and Mad, who had been brought to stay at Mehrabad. He continued to bathe and feed them each day and generally oversee their welfare. Some of the Mad were sent away in July. Beidul and Plider were put in charge of the 12 mosques and Mad that remained and were given detailed instructions about their care while Baba was in France. Baba also assigned duties to each of the other men Mandali. Hindu was appointed the manager at Mehrabad, and Padri was to treat the sick with homeopathic medicine, as was Nilu with allopathic medicine. Padri was to run the dispensary in Nilu's absence with Ghani's help. Murli was a compounder. Vishnu was to do the marketing. Kalemama was to look after the mechanical works. Sidhu was to help with the care and supervision of the mosques. And similarly, other individual duties were given to the rest of Mandali. Rao Sahib had moved back to Bombay and would come to Mehrabad occasionally, and there's a footnote.
Rao Sahib later married and had several children. End of footnote.
Do you want me to continue, Mona?
Maybe somebody else could read. Thanks, Mao. Betty, are you there? Can you read? Yep.
On here. Yeah. At the top of the page.
Yep.
Okay. 1852. And Khan, 1937. Baba had gone to Nasik on 12 July. 3 days later, he left by car for Bombay to acquire the necessary travel documents, a new passport, visas, and ship tickets. Adi Sr., Norina, Rano, Elizabeth, and Rustam's second son, Falu, who was going to England for his studies, went with him. Footnote.
Adi Jr. came to Bombay a few days later for his passport and visa work, so that when Baba called him to France, he would be ready to go. End of footnote.
They reached Bombay at noon, and Baba ate at Kaka's and stayed there with Adi and Falu. The meal and Baba's room had not been kept ready, as the telegraph office had mistakenly written that Baba would be arriving that night. Chanji had booked a double room at the Regent Hotel for Elizabeth and Norina, and a single for Rano. During Baba's trip to London in November 1936, Rano and her mother, Nani, had purchased a 3-piece pinstripe suit for Baba. They had found a clerk Baba's height and guessed the size. It fit perfectly. On this occasion in Bombay, Rana was told to buy a pair of shoes for Baba as a gift from Nani. She went to a shop with Norina and Elizabeth. They had to guess Baba's foot size and take them on approval. The shoes fit, and Baba wore them in France. Although Baba's visit to Bombay was kept private and only a few were informed of his presence in the city, he agreed to meet his lovers at Kaka's, the confectioner's, apartment on Saturday and Sunday mornings, 17 and 18 July. Many took advantage of the opportunity, as Chanji reported. No talk was the strict warning given to all, yet it went on as usual. Baba had to either ask about an individual or reply to questions asked. To some, he himself gave advice for certain things. To see Baba work on a variety of things in rapid sequence, one after the other for hours, is to see infinity and wisdom at work. From important topics on business to of immediate importance, for which he specially came down to Bombay, to be diverted to 1,001 questions of visitors with all kinds of tales of their miseries and sufferings without end, to pacify and reply to almost each detail, is a task that requires indeed infinite patience and infinite wisdom to tackle. Masters alone could do that. One is tired from even watching this for hours. There are many workers by his side who take turns as and when required. Yet he alone works throughout. This is true mastery in servitude. After a few days in Bombay, Baba left for Nasik on the 18th in Elizabeth's car with her, Norina, Rano, and Falu. This was the last time Baba visited his Western lovers at MEHER retreat. He stayed 2 days and left for Meherabad on the 20th. Sorry, Ruby, no. Rano left Nasik on 23rd July by train for Bombay, where she was met by Chanji and Kaka, who assisted her in changing trains. Like Sam Cohen, Rano was traveling to Europe via Ceylon, a cheaper passage, though it would take longer, and she was to meet Baba and the group in Cannes. Later that day, Sampath Iyengar, the editor of MEHER Gazette, came from Madras to see Baba. But when he arrived in Nasik, Baba had already left. Sampath went on to Meherabad to meet Baba and was informed about Baba's upcoming trip to France. Baba left Meherabad with Mera, Mani, Naja, Khorshed, Sunamasi, and Walu at 2:50 p.m. on Thursday, 29 July 1937, to begin their journey to France. They traveled first in Saros's Chevrolet up to Vilad railway station, 16 kilometers north of Ahmednagar, from where they boarded a train for Bombay. Vishnu accompanied them to Bombay. Chanji, Kaka, and Nilu were to join Baba for the journey. From Nasik, Norina, Elizabeth, Nani, Rano, Malcolm, Jean, and Tom drove to Bombay the same day with Falu. When Baba and the women arrived in Bombay early the next morning, Baba did not wish any of his lovers to see him at the train station, so none in Bombay were informed. Yep. Loie, can I come back in just a sec? Okay. So none in Bombay were informed. After spending a day at the Regent Hotel, Baba and the group boarded the Strathnavar on Saturday, 31 July, 1937, and sailed for Marseille at 1 p.m. The two dogs, Skippy and Canute, went with them, as did Elizabeth Ford. For the first few days, the sea was very rough and all remained in their cabins. But even when the weather improved, the women Mandali had to remain in seclusion in their cabins. They would only be taken out on deck in the wee hours of the morning when all the other passengers were sleeping, so that no one could see them. When Baba brought them up, Kaka and Chanji were posted as sentries, often crouching in the pitch dark passageways, like beggars on the street, Chanji wrote glumly. The Westerners, however, were unrestricted in their movements and could move about the ship at any time, except for Rano, who was kept aloof like the Eastern women. Once Baba found Rano on deck and asked her why she was there. Rano explained that the cabin was stuffy and she needed fresh air. Baba scolded her, "Unless I direct you otherwise, do not step out of your cabin." Rano returned, but that after that incident, Baba permitted her to walk on the deck for 2 hours each day, but she had to be accompanied by Norina. Traveling on the same ship was Ramchandra Gadikar, the son of the humble cobbler, who was deeply connected with the master. Gadikar had won a government scholarship to study education at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland. Actually, Baba had informed Gadikar in advance that he would be traveling to France on the Strathnavar, but he had instructed Gadikar not to tell anyone. So when Gadikar's wife, Gunatai, and their 2 children saw him off in Bombay, they were delighted to see Baba and the Mandali on board. To Gunatai, Baba remarked, "Do not worry, I am with your husband." Another fortunate fellow traveler was the young dancer Audrey Williams, an acquaintance of Margaret Crask's, who had not seen Baba since 1933 in India. Audrey had joined the dance company called De Basile Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo and was returning there from Australia. Being in Baba's presence again, she recalled, one still had this feeling of eternal happiness. But this was to be Audrey's last meeting with Baba. Can I give it over to someone? I need to tend to something here, okay?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. The ship docked at Aden at 3 in the afternoon on Wednesday, 4th. Eva, I can't see the screen. Okay, all right. Uh, at one point, Baba observed, suffering is the keynote to spiritual life. Sadgurus and the avatar never avoid suffering, either their own or their mandali, by doing miracles. They suffer themselves and let their mandali suffer too. He used the example of the women mandali who had been cooped up in their cabins for so many days. Just when Baba had arranged to bring them out to a secluded area of the deck, and they were enjoying a few moments of the cool sea breeze, a sandstorm began blowing, making remaining on the deck impossible. During the voyage on Saturday, 7th August 1937, Baba explained to the Westerners about performing selfless service. God as God alone is not consciously man, and man as man alone is not consciously God. Only the God man is consciously both God and man, so the God man is both Lord and the servant of the universe. I shall read this again, it's really nice. Just go back to that page, please, Eva. I want to read that again. The last. Yeah. God as God alone is not consciously man. Man and man as man alone is not consciously God. Only the God man is consciously both God and man. So the God man is both Lord and the servant of the universe. Thank you. I think this is a good place to stop for today, and we can take it from here for next week. We shall start from 1855 next week. I shall stop the recording.